Hello again. Alright, so I've gotten all of the walnut stain all over the edges of the blocks, and what I want to do is kind of do a faux staining kind of a thing using Grab a Guide Gold and dark chocolate truffle. I water down my paintbrush and get a little bit of the spray and I just brush it on. And whatever stains, it stains. I'm not looking for anything dark at all. And this is my chipboard pieces that I'm going to gesso and just give just a coat of gesso just to get it nice and primed. And here's my drywall repair tape, just kind of randomly cutting it in little jaggedy areas, kind of crooked and stuff. Just adding those to my blocks in different areas. Now I'm going to get some cheesecloth so that I can add to the side here of this one block, this first one. Using some of the matte medium, I'm going to use that to glue this down. This is going to give some great texture, and it's going to help absorb quite a bit of the paint that I use to grunge up the side later on. So I'm going to use some glue here and just cut out a random piece, kind of choppy and chunky looking, and adding on the hinges to the sides and some. I'm just going to go through the entire all 6 blocks and add a bunch of little pieces of the chipboard chicken wire and the hinges and stuff. It's going to look great. And then what I want to do is do a little bit of a sealant for the drywall tape because it's not heavily sticky on the backside. So I wanted to prime it and get it down, tacked down. So, and then here I'm just going to get a little bit of gesso and go over some of the pieces that I know that I'm going to want to paint around and get some of the crevices and stuff. So I just want to get some gesso on there so that it's ready to take my paint. And that's what they'd look like, and I'm going to show you how I did that. Using some of that green and that light cinnamon from Americana. This is going to get watered down, and when you do this, if you end up getting an area that's a little too dark, just add a little bit more gesso in it to lighten it. And make sure that you have a paper towel or a wipey there and some water so that you can water it down, wipe it off, and then just to kind of get the staining or the shade that you're looking for your project. Even if you do that and use a heating tool and it's still too dark, you can still just add your gesso and lighten it back up again if it just seems like it's too much in one area or two or wherever. So what I'm looking for is to kind of dinge it up like there's been built up over some time, That's kind of what I'm looking for. And then too, I wanted to highlight some of the texture from the drywall tape. So it just kind of helped with letting it be shown. For the back sides of the paper, I did do some random stamping. And what I'm going to do is add some hymnal paper. And I can't find the clip to it, but I did splatter some Lindy Stamp King sprays with some water and made it look kind of grungy. And you can see some of the blotches on some of the papers here. So I'm just going to glue down all of my letters in the middle of each panel and get those ready. And I have the F and the A done. Where I have the lace and some of the cardstock border. You can see that there on the underside. I'm just going to glue that F down, and then I'm going to do the back side and put that aside so I can finish up the entire set. So I'm going to flip her around and do the back side. Just going to real quick put some glue on that. I do go back later on with my glue gun and fill in areas that may not have gotten glued down really well. That's what that fine tip is really good for. So when I put my A down, and I already did the lace and the cardstock on that side as well. So that one's kind of ready. So this is how I do it. I use my poker tool. And since it's not a blade, there's not a clean cut, so it'll already kind of give that distressed edge. So that's why I just use it to poke and slice, and it gives me already a distressed edge. I don't have to go back with anything to distress the paper itself. So just using that scrap cardstock, using the border punch, trim out a strip, and then I just tear some of this paper up here so that I can make room for that cardstock to show. I'm going to ink it up and make it look a little grungy, and then I can glue it on back there. And I'm just tearing it and making sure that it shows. I don't want to put paper back there and it's not going to show. So I make sure that I'm tearing it and it's open enough where it's showing the cardstock and the style and design of the border punch. It's going to go in and tack in some areas. I'm going to do that to all of them and add the lace and the cardstock. And now they're all done. So now for the F, I pulled out the F so I can start on it. And I decided to just grab this, it's a scrap piece actually, and I just cut this out. Together is our favorite place to be. So what I did is I cut every word apart. And using my little zig pen, it's a little glue pen. It's really cool for these kinds of things. I just glued those down on to ivory cardstock and then cut them out, distress the edges with my scissors, and then some ink, kind of framing it. Those sheets that have like sayings and words and stuff, those are so cool to use. Easy, quick way to use to find your title for a layout or a card or something. Some metals that I wanted to use here, and I'm just going to add some gesso and rubbing it in with my finger. Still rubbing some of it off so that some of the metal can show through and some of the detail will show through, especially on this piece here. Just made a bow and added a filigree flower with a paper flower on top with some skeleton leaves right behind that. I didn't show you guys when I put that in, but I added like 3 of them there. It gives a nice soft touch. So made a tiny bouquet, just a couple of leaves, some cherry blossoms, and the little flower sprays from Wild Orchid Crafts, and all of the flowers here are from Wild Orchid Crafts. Then some seam binding in the cream color. Just put my bouquet there in the corner, and then I'm going to tuck in those little berries. Now they're double-ended berries, so I do fold it and then I trim excess and then use some hot glue to bind it all together. And I just make little bundles like that all the time. Some more skeleton leaves, and I do add on to here. I add a little heart, some banners, and I think another flower. Some scrap ribbon. This is some of their silk ribbon, and I don't know if Wild Orchid Crafts still has these or not, but I will check and make sure that if they do, the link will be over on my blog in the product list. What I decided to do here is with Melissa Francis' little frame, I wanted to frame like it's doily or something. I wanted to frame that little flower on that lace, one of their newer laces. It's so cute. And I still have the bottom part hanging out there. And then I have that that metal piece with the sentiment on it. I wanted it to stand right on top of it like that. So I'm going to add a tiny little rose. I think this is an 8mm two-toned green rose. And here's an orchid. These are funky shaped, but they're cool. Just a couple layers. They just have a really cool look to it. And then a dark brown 8mm rose. And here I end up changing my mind. So I cut my little flower out from that lace, that scrap piece. And then I glue that down, and then I put the little brown flower on top on the bottom left. And I end up ripping it off and putting it on the top right side. And you can see it there. I ended up getting some cheesecloth and spraying it with some Lindy's. I think this is my mojito green to kind of give the look of maybe moss or something, but the green just went with the green that I'm using for this project anyway, so you can see the papers tore up, but it doesn't matter. And then a gardenia right on top, and that works just fine. Now here is the L that I decided to go ahead and add that sentiment to. So what I decided to do is again use my glue pen, and I glued some of them flat right on the block. And on a couple of words, I used my little foam adhesive 3D dots or 3D squares and added them to just a couple of them to just prop them up. So it just has some of them have dimension. So it just kind of looks a little different. Little bit of some seam binding, and I just made a knot. And a couple tiny little roses. These are the little 8mm ones. Super cute and tiny. And I didn't want to do big flowers. I didn't want to take away from the title. So I used just little roses. I did add more up the top there later on. A clock face, and I cut out a bird from the collection with the brad, and I just left it like that. I did put a couple more flowers up on that side near that bird. For the Y, I'm going to just add this word that says love, and I'm just bending it and folding it and distressing it there, and I'm going to do a dimensional setting at the bottom here. We'll have some flowers sticking out from the top and some berries or some floral sprays. Here is one of those, I can't remember what they're called now at the second. One of the newer roses, Cheese Louise. It's late and I can't remember the name. This one is a hip rose that I do tuck in. I will do the curly Q and have it drape over the L side there and glue it down in that little lift. This is the fun part for me, to do this thing, this chain thingy. So there's a word tag and with all of the junky stuff on it. This is how I do it because I think it gives a nice texture, makes it look like it got weathered, makes it look like there's a little bit of patina and rust on it. So using this bronze butterfly, which they do have still, I'm going to gesso both sides. Dry it, heat set it a little bit, and add some of this sage green paint with my finger. And then I'm going to do this curio knob the same way. And there's a screw underneath that, so I do take that off and use it in the cork later on. And you'll know what I mean when you see it. Alcohol inking it with some ginger and some lettuce green something or other, and I'm just dabbing it all over. Adding more texture with gesso with my finger, and some more, a little bit of the green. Same thing with the curio knob. So I did like 2 layers of this so that I can give it a cakey look, like it's gotten like calcified deposits and stuff on it, like the rust and stuff like that. I really enjoyed doing this. This was so much fun, and I can't wait to do some more of these. I'm going to add some crackle accents to the butterfly and to the word tag that says Destiny, and it's just going to look so fantastic. I love the look because the crackle accents is wet. It pulls out this gold out of this. Oh my God, it was just so pretty. You guys have to see the detailed pictures. I have a couple of good close-ups, and I just got them loaded on my blog, so it's so cool to look at. In this chain here, this dog tag chain, I just wrapped it around just long enough where it's tight and it will not fall off of the knob. Since the back end is super small, I just made sure that it fit on the back. That way it's nice and tight there, and it's too small to fall off of that little knob. These are one of the new pieces here, the little curly Q. So I mean, they're really long. So I just cut it in half, tighten up the curls, and use both of them for one little bouquet. That looks cool. Oh, I just love that side. And did a little bit of my moss with the cheesecloth thing again, and just building my little bouquet. There's some more berries in the middle. A couple little hip roses with a couple leaves. You can see that here. A rosebud and some of Wild Orchid Crafts seam binding that I crinkled all by myself. And I have a tutorial on how to do that if you guys are interested. Some Maya Road chipboard pieces. I just inked it with walnut stain, sprayed it with this Grab-A-Guide Gold and some other brown ones. So I think it was a dark chocolate truffle. Added crackle accents to the top of it to give it a leathered look. And that little cork there. That's the one that I stuck the screw in the side there underneath. And also added some ink and some crackle accents to it, giving it a cool look. And a couple little clothespins, inked that as well. The Special Memories is from the paper collection. Just adding a chain here from Tim Holtz. And I'm going to do a couple of roses here, just inking them with some Prima chalk ink. They're just going to stick out of the back there, sitting on top of some leaves, and that's it. Thanks you guys for watching.